Members and guests, I know you have a lot of friends here today. Just as a reminder, please encourage them to silence their cell phones, refrain from clapping, and act in accordance with the Senate rules. Please remain standing for the presentation of colors. Today's colors will be presented by the members of the Colorado Army National Guard, Joint Force Headquarters. Members specializing and participating will be Sergeant Mitchell, Staff Sergeant Bujad, Staff Sergeant Chavez, and Staff Sergeant Melcher.
Center face. Present arms.
Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance to be led this morning by Senator Heisey. Senator Heisey is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senators and guests, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing. This morning we are pleased to have the Pueblo Children's Chorale, directed by Christina Anderson, as our musical guest here to perform the Star-Spangled Banner.
Colors, post. Post, colors. Forward, arms. Forward, march.
Members and guests, please help me recognize and acknowledge the Colorado Army National Guard for the presentation of colors today. Pueblo Children's Chorale, thank you for your work, but can you please maybe play one more interlude?
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you for having us today. Thank you, Senator Garcia, for the invitation to perform here today. We are the Pueblo Children's Chorale. We are in our 24th season of excellence of singing in Pueblo. So thank you for having us. We got on our bus kids are about just now waking up, so they're ready to sing for you. Usually our director is Mr. Zachary Freiberg. He sends his apologies for not being able to be here today. He had a family emergency. I am the executive director. I've been with the chorale for 24 years, so I'm filling in as director today. We are going to sing a few songs from our winter concert that we just had on December 7th. We're going to share with you two numbers. This is it from the Bugs Bunny show. Should be nostalgic for many of you in here. I'm not saying you're old, I'm just saying nostalgic. And actually that was the first song that the children's chorale ever performed back in 1996. And then we will sing a song from the Prince of Egypt, When You Believe, which will include some Hebrew in it that our singers learned actually in just one rehearsal. So please enjoy. Thank you.
Pueblo Children's Chorale, thank you so much for joining us here this morning. Pursuant to the Constitution and the laws of the state of Colorado, I hereby call to order the second regular session of Colorado Senate of the 72nd General Assembly of the state of Colorado. Mr. Carpenter, please call the roll.
Senators Bridges, Cook, Quorum, Court,
Excused.
Crowder, Danielson, Donovan, Finberg, Fields, Foote, Gardner, Janal, Gonzalez, Hill,
Excused.
Heisey, Holbert, Lee, Lundeen, Marble, Moreno, Pedersen, Priola, Rankin, Rodriguez, Scott, Smallwood, Sonnenberg, Story, Tate, Todd, Williams, Winter, Woodward, Zinzinger. Mr. President.
Here. With 33 present, 0 absent, 2 excused, we have a quorum. The Senate will stand in recess. Members, if you were unaware of why we're standing in recess, the House has assembled itself, and so the Senate recognizes Representative Coleman, Representative Hawkes Lewis, and Representative Geithner.
I'm not Representative Coleman.
Representative, you are not recognized. Representative Hawkes Lewis.
There you go. You ready? Go ahead.
Representative Lundeen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Oh, those don't move anymore. I'm here to tell you that the House is organized and ready for business, and we had to wait a few minutes until the Senate was organized and ready for business. I hope that doesn't set the tone for the rest of the year. So, looking forward to the new year.
Representative Hawkes Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to come and take a look at the Senate chambers. I also wanted to tell you that the House is very perky and very excited to get going, and we hope you are too. Thank you.
Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have really nothing to add other than that it's a pleasure to actually speak from this well, and we look forward to conducting good, meaningful business this year. And sine die, too. If we can do that sooner, that'd be great. And this is my son, Logan. He's an honorary member of the committee here. So say hello, Logan. He's a little bashful. So, all right, thank you.
Welcome, representatives, and please give the House our best wishes.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
The Senate will come back to order. The next order of business is the election of the Secretary of the Senate. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that Her Excellency, Cindy Markwell, be elected as Secretary of the Senate during the second regular session of the 72nd General Assembly.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. Ms. Markwell, please come forward so that you may take the oath of office. This is for the listening audience. Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Cindy Markwell,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the constitutions
that I will support the constitutions
of the United States
of the United States
and the state of Colorado,
and the state of Colorado,
and faithfully perform
faithfully perform
the duties of the office
the duties of the office
to which I am duly elected
to which I am duly elected
to the best of my abilities,
to the best of my abilities,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations. The Secretary of the Senate is in possession of the letter of resignation from Senator Lois Court. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read the letter?
Senate, State of Colorado, Denver, President Pro Tempore. January 6, 2020, Cindy Markwell, Secretary of the Senate, resignation letter. This is to inform you that I am resigning my seat representing Senate District 31 in the Colorado State Legislature, effective the end of the day on January 16, 2020. Representing the people of Denver in the State Senate and the State House has been one of the highlights of my life, and I am honored to represent such wonderful, engaged, and caring people. Sincerely, Lois Court.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the joint rules of the first regular session of the 72nd General Assembly be made the temporary joint rules of the second regular session of the 72nd General Assembly.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and that motion is adopted. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate rules of the first regular session of the 72nd General Assembly be made the temporary Senate rules of the second regular session of the 72nd General Assembly.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and that motion is adopted. Majority Leader Fenberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that a committee be appointed to notify the House that the Senate is organized and ready for business.
Is there any objection? Seeing none, Senators Zenzinger, Bridges, and Rankin are appointed to a committee to notify the House that the Senate is organized and ready for business. You are excused.
Good riddance.
Majority Leader Fenberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that a committee be appointed to notify the governor that the Senate is organized and ready for business.
Is there any objection? Seeing none, Senators Fields, Todd, and Crowder are appointed to the committee to notify the governor that the Senate is organized and ready for business. You are excused. The Senate will stand in a recess until the committee's return. The Senate will come back to order. Will the committees please report to the Senate? Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, we did approach the House and let them know that we were organized and ready for business. We also squelched any rumor that we were going to be going 121 days because of the leap year. We adhered to our position of our constitutional duty of 120 days. So there you go.
Senator Rankin.
Thank you, Mr. President. So the House managed to actually be organized for a minute, sit down, pay attention, and we informed them that we were ready to go to work. So hopefully they heard us.
Senator Bridges.
Thank you, Mr. President. Their platform here goes up and down in the House. I forgot about that. It's nice. We should think about that. But they laugh, they clap. They shake hands with people coming down the middle of the aisle. It's so rowdy over there, and it's nice to be back in a place where we can all take a nap when we need to. So they're ready for business such as they do it.
Thank you, committees, for your work. Members, will you... Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Mr. President. We did meet with the governor, and each of us had a discussion with him. And what the governor and I discussed was basically a situation of hope for the state. A hope that we can, in this body, we can make the state better. But I think he was very open to that. And it was a very good meeting, but we did indicate that we were ready for business. Thank you.
Senator Fields.
Good morning, Mr. President, all my colleagues and all the guests that are here today. We had a good conversation with the governor, and he said it's a wonderful day in Colorado, and he's glad for us to get to work for the people of Colorado.
Senator Todd.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Dan, I had a lot to say, but my good friend, Senator Crowder, cut me off. But I said to him, I think the most important thing that we need to have this year is good communication across the board. No surprises. During session or at the end of session. And so he obviously talked about the importance of peace internationally and where we are, and also the importance of making sure, he didn't really say this, but I'm going to put words in his mouth, and that is that that we work well together this year. And I look forward to it. And thank you very much, Mr. President, for letting us go down. And again, I had a whole lot more I needed to say, but my friends cut me off.
Committee to notify the... Senator Crowder.
It's not that I cut her off. We have 120 days to talk this out. We can do it in that period of time. We don't need to do it all in one day. Thank you, Mr. President.
Committee to notify the governor. Thank you for your work. Members, will you please help me in recognizing and acknowledging the following dignitaries who are here joining us today. Please welcome back Senator Matt Jones, Senator and President Kevin Grantham, Majority Leader Mark Shuffle, Senator Kevin Lundberg, and Senator Keith King, as well as former Congressman and former Senator Mike Kaufman, the current mayor of Aurora. Welcome to the Senate. Mr. Carpenter, would you please read the message from the House?
The House has adopted and transmits herewith House Joint Resolution 1001 as printed in the House Journal, January 8th, 2020. Pursuant to the resolution, the Speaker has appointed Representatives Hooten, Chair, Arndt, and Sandridge. Introduction and consideration of resolutions. Mr. Carpenter, would you please read the title to House Joint Resolution 1001? House Joint Resolution 1001 by Representative Becker and Senator Garcia concerning a joint session in the House of Representatives and the Senate for the purpose of hearing a message from His Excellency Governor Jared Polis and appointing a committee to escort the governor.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of HJR 1001 regarding the joint session to receive the State of the State address.
The motion is for the adoption of the House Joint Resolution 1001. Are there any no votes? Seeing none, with a vote of 33 ayes, 0 noes, 2 excused, and 0 absent, that motion is adopted. Co-sponsors. Mr. Minority Leader. Pursuant, Senator Tate. Senator Bridges. Senator Williams. Pursuant to the resolution, Senators Pedersen and Priola are appointed to escort the governor to the state of the state address. Mr. Carpenter, would you please read the title to Senate Joint Resolution 001?
Senate Joint Resolution 1 by Senator Finberg and Representative Mullica concerning the officers and employees of the second regular session of the 72nd General Assembly.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of Senate Joint Resolution 001 concerning the officers and employees of the General Assembly.
There is an amendment at the desk. Mr. Carpenter, please read Amendment 001 to Senate Joint Resolution 001.
Amendment L001 to Senate Joint
Mr.
Resolution.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Amendment 1 to Senate Joint Resolution 001. Members, this is a technical change to make sure areas of this joint resolution lines up with the individual Senate and House resolutions we pass at the beginning of each session, which enable us to employ a staff. Blame it on sleep deprivation if you want, but it's a small mistake that we need to fix.
The motion before the body is the adoption of Amendment 001 to Senate Joint Resolution 001. Are there any no votes? Seeing none, with a vote of 33 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 2 excused, that motion is adopted. Is there further discussion on Resolution 001? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Joint Resolution 001. Are there any no votes? Seeing none, with a vote of 33 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 2 excused, that motion is adopted.
I hope not.
Co-sponsors on Senate Joint Resolution 001. Mr. Carpenter, would you please read the title to Senate Joint Resolution 002?
Senate Joint Resolution 2 by Senators Lundin and Fields and Representatives Van Winkle and Sirota concerning the support of the I Love You Guys Foundation.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that Senate Joint Resolution 002 lay over to Friday, January 24th.
The motion is that Senate Joint Resolution 002 lay over until Friday, January 24th. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and that motion is adopted. Mr. Carpenter, would you please read the title to Senate Resolution 001?
Senate Resolution 1 by Senator Finberg concerning the appointment of officers and employees for the Senate convened for the second regular session of the 72nd General Assembly.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that Senate Resolution 001 lay over to tomorrow, Thursday, January 9th.
The motion is that Senate Resolution 001 lay over until tomorrow, Thursday, January 9th. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and that motion is adopted. Introduction of memorials. Mr. Carpenter, would you please read the title to Senate Joint Memorial 001?
Senate Joint Memorial 1 by Senator Story and Representatives Tipper and Larson concerning memorializing former Senator Kathy Arnold.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that Senate Joint Memorial 001 lay over to Monday, January 13th.
The motion is that Senate Joint Memorial 001 lay over until Monday, January 13th. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and that motion is adopted. Majority Leader Fenberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, I would request that Mr. Carpenter read the committee appointment letters to the Senate committees of reference and standing committees.
Mr. Carpenter, would you please read the committee appointment letters?
Senate Majority Leader, December 4th, 2019, Ms. Natalie Mullis, Executive Director, Ms. Natalie Mullis. As you know, the Senate rules require that as Majority Leader determine the committee composition and the majority party's appointments to the 2020 legislative committees of reference. This letter will serve as an addendum to a similar letter dated January 3, 2019, and placed within the 2019 Senate Journal. All committees will remain the same except for the Agriculture and Natural Resources Committee, the Health and Human Services Committee, and the Transportation and Energy Committee. Transportation and Energy Committee will change from a 7-member committee to a 5-member committee with 3 majority appointments, 2 minority appointments, and will be comprised of Senator Faith Winter, Chair, Senator Kerry Donovan, Vice Chair, Senator Mike Foote, Member. The Agriculture and Natural Resources Committee will be comprised of Senator Kerry Donovan, Chair, Senator Jesse Danielson, Vice Chair, Senator Robert Rodriguez, Member. The Health and Human Services Committee will be comprised of Senator Rhonda Fields, Chair, Senator Faith Winter, Vice Chair, Senator Joanne Janal, Member. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Sincerely, Steve Fenberg, Senate Majority Leader. Senate State of Colorado, Denver, January 3rd, 2020. Ms. Natalie Mullis. Dear Director Mullis, please be advised that due to the December 4th, 2019 letter from Senate Majority Leader Fenberg reducing the number of members on the Senate Transportation and Energy Committee from 7 to 5, I am relieving Senator Kevin Priol of his position on that committee effective immediately. Senators Dennis Heisey and Ray Scott will remain on that committee, with Senator Scott as the ranking Republican member. Respectfully yours, Chris Holbert, Senate Minority Leader.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate stand in recess to hear the remarks of Senator Garcia, the President of the Senate, and Senator Holbert, Senate Minority Leader.
Is there any objection? Seeing none, the Senate will stand in a recess.
Mr. President.
Good morning and welcome back to the Senate, where we are entrusted with the solemn opportunity to serve and protect the residents of this great state. I personally am honored to return as your president and would like to thank you for your hard work and dedication last year. It was truly unmatched. Thank you to my constituents for their continued confidence and support. Pueblo, as you know, is an incredibly unique place that I am humbled to serve and will continue to fight for. Thank you to my beautiful family for their love and encouragement. Thank you to the Majority Leader for your ongoing leadership. We are fortunate to have you. And congratulations on your new beautiful baby girl, Isadora. We share in your excitement. I would like to take a moment to thank our members of the armed forces for their unwavering commitment to this nation and their willingness to put themselves in harm's way. To our law enforcement officers, firefighters, emergency medical service providers, and all who put their lives on the line for us day in and day out, thank you on behalf of the Colorado Senate. To Minority Leader Holbert, I look forward to the opportunity to work with you on behalf of all Coloradans who need us to put aside partisanship in pursuit of common sense solutions for the issues that they face day in and day out. And finally, I would like to acknowledge a remarkable woman, our friend and colleague, Senator Lois Court, who sadly is not with us today due to her recent medical illness. After 11 years of public service, we are heartbroken by her resignation and absence, but know that her work and dedication will live on. Senator Court, thank you for the years of meaningful work in our state, your dedication and genuine passion for all of the people of Colorado. It serves as an inspiring example for all of us. Today marks the day we open the second regular session of the 72nd General Assembly, continuing our work to protect Colorado's natural beauty, improve health care, and restore the economic dignity of hardworking Coloradans everywhere. We know this work is not always easy. It takes unwavering personal commitment, a persistent reverence for the people's will, as well as endless amounts of objectivity, diplomacy, and grit. But more than that, it requires a deep compassion. Compassion for the single mother who works 2 jobs and can barely cover the cost of childcare. Compassion for the union worker who has been betrayed by the careless corporate greed. Compassion for our children and the climate we are giving them. And compassion for the college student whose father was diagnosed with cancer and quit school to help their family avoid bankruptcy. These are the experiences of people we serve. Except for them, it's not just words on a page. It is the reality they live with every single day. Yet the truth is, compassion is not enough. They need results. They need us not to just talk about the problems, but present real solutions to the struggles they face. The American dream that once felt like a hopeful promise is becoming more and more difficult to achieve. And Coloradans find it harder and harder to get ahead, while the super rich write their own rules and endlessly profit on the backs of the hardworking people. They sow division by elections and rig the system in their favor. And in a time of deep national division, we here in Colorado face a very important choice. Will we continue to join together and fight for every Coloradan, putting people before profit and personal gain? Or will we fall into the destructive political infighting and attempts at obstruction like that of Washington, D.C.? I believe we will follow in Colorado's rich tradition of coming together to solve this state's pressing challenges. Growing up in southern Colorado, I watched my parents and neighbors work tirelessly for a better life they believed in. They believed in the American dream, as I still do today. But watching my community face heartache after heartache, from ballooning healthcare costs to an economic recession that tore through the very foundation of our town, it has been difficult at times to remain confident. But what always gave me hope was the way our community banded together, the way they looked out for each other, the way they never gave up. Even after the housing market crashed, record high unemployment, and other struggles, our community remains hopeful and determined, always finding a way to persevere. But that's not just the story of Pueblo. That's the story of Colorado. Countless communities are struggling while wealthy insiders continue to hoard power and blatantly bend political agendas for their own benefit. While at the same time, people refuse to give up and continue to pursue meaningful change. This is what makes our country and our state great. It is this spirit that makes me proud to be a Coloradan, and what inspired me to serve my country as a United States Marine in Iraq in 2003. Because at our core, our common and collective purpose stands unparalleled in the world. Beyond race, class, or gender, we believe in the justice, opportunity, and the pursuit of happiness. It is these ideals that we have sought to serve last session, and what we will continue to serve no matter who or what seeks to divide us. Let me be clear. There has been a brazen effort to not only divide this chamber, but dismantle it. From Washington-style political antics to pointless attempts to upend the will of the voters. To those set on continuing their commitment to gridlock, let me say, your efforts have been and will continue to be a fruitless endeavor. We, the Colorado Senate, are called upon to find common ground, to come to the table and offer solutions, to join the conversation and debate policies based on its merits rather than its party's origin. It is our duty to give all Coloradans the equal opportunity that they have. Sitting on the sidelines and using hate or fear to undermine honest efforts is an unacceptable standard. We are better than that, but more importantly, Colorado deserves better. We must be a part of the solution and work together for common good. Now, thankfully, despite last year's attempts to derail progress, we did find collaborators in this body and passed significant legislation, 96% of which had bipartisan support. In 2019, we successfully put forth bills to lower the cost of prescription drugs, reduce insurance premiums, and empower communities to negotiate directly with providers. We invested in the next generation by funding full-day kindergarten and worked to address the student debt crisis. We successfully fought for fairness and opportunity by passing equal pay for equal work, as well as legislation that helps Coloradoans afford to live in the place that they call home. But that's not enough. So many of our communities are still struggling. Far too many Coloradans still face exorbitant health care costs, often being forced to choose between financial stability and getting the health care that they desperately need. No one should be burdened with that choice. Colorado pays some of the highest hospital prices in the nation, while ranking second for the highest hospital profits. So while families are paying upwards of 80% or more for health care, CEO salaries are at an all-time high. That is why we must continue to find new and innovative solutions for our health care needs, because going backwards is not an option, and remaining stagnant certainly isn't one either. We are committed to increasing competition and driving down insurance costs with legislation that promotes innovation and addresses the widening affordability gap. We are also committed to insisting that corporate transparency around prescription drugs and healthcare billing, protecting Coloradans from unchecked corporate price gouging, and allowing communities to hold providers accountable. But healthcare isn't the only thing keeping Coloradans up at night. Our growing climate challenges weigh heavy on the minds of the residents, especially our young people, who will undoubtedly bear the brunt of this burden. From floods to fires to endless drought, everyone across the state has felt the effects of a changing environment. Our recreational industry has suffered. Our farmers face financial ruin. And our vulnerable communities are continuously jeopardized by extreme temperatures. We are at a critical crossroad in our planet's history. And as Coloradans, we can take meaningful steps towards a more sustainable future. We are committed to leading the charge with innovative solutions that protect Colorado's natural resources and the people who rely on them. Because we refuse to abandon the workers who have served our state for generations, powering our homes, supporting our businesses, and driving our economy. In this way, we must prioritize a just transition while in pursuit of environmental stewardship. That is why this year we will be working towards solutions that invigorate our economy and provide new, high-paying jobs in the community. Because sustainability and economic growth are not at odds with each other, but rather inseparable partners if we hope for a prosperous future. In my hometown of Pueblo, we have seen an amazing example of this. On the verge of a plant closure from rising utility costs, our local steel mill partnered with energy providers to build the largest solar array in the state's history, supplying an unprecedented amount of renewable energy while guaranteeing hundreds of jobs remain in our community. These kinds of partnerships are the keys to our state's future, because as solar and wind continue to be the fastest growing in the nation, it is critical that we here in Colorado work to not only harness this economic growth, but lead in the charge. Beyond creating new job opportunities, we will also be working dramatically to improve our air and water quality in the state by implementing harsher penalties for negligence and irresponsibility. Because Coloradans are tired of people recklessly polluting the water we drink and the air we breathe without consequences. Coloradans are also tired of the skyrocketing costs of living and the flat wages that we have had for years. Forced to work multiple jobs to make ends meet, too many people are trapped in a crippling cycle of poverty with little opportunity for relief. It is time that we attack the root of the problem and address predatory practices that keep our people in debt, limit their power as workers, and take them from their families during times of need. We need to defend our residents from these injustices and ensure that they are afforded the protections every Coloradan deserves. This means opportunity for affordable higher education, stable housing, and paid family leave. It also means access to quality teachers, job training, and a seamless transportation system. Because the American dream shouldn't require a VIP ticket, but rather only be limited by a person's willingness to work hard and persist in hope. So today, let us renew our commitment to the people of Colorado. Let us honor the voice they have spoke with when they put us here at the helm. Because despite all of the dysfunction in Washington, despite all of the inequities and the discrimination rampant in our society, and despite the booming economy that doesn't seem to benefit everyone, the people of this state are remarkably hopeful and passionate. They will not accept political gamesmanship in the place of true governing. They will not accept platitudes in the place of action. And they will not accept corruption in any way, shape, or form. Because they choose progress over protecting the status quo, and they expect us to deliver. That means putting self-serving agendas aside and coming to the table in order to make meaningful change happen. So let us together, on behalf of all Coloradans, remember what unites us. We are called to serve with honor and integrity, measure and resolve, vision and leadership. And we, who have had the privilege of the people's trust, will act with nothing less. God's blessing be with you and on this great state we call home as we embark on this journey together. Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. No, it's not my speech. Could I have Mr. Carter? Never. Mr. President, Mr. Majority Leader, members, family, and guests. The Colorado Senate has convened for the second regular session of the 72nd General Assembly. Today we begin the 144th year in the history of this state legislature. Colleagues, it is an honor to serve with each of you. So few people have the opportunity to stand here in this well, to debate issues and participate in crafting the laws of our state. I'm humbled to be counted among you and those who have served before us. For some of you, this will be your final general session serving in this chamber. During the final days of this session, we will gather here to offer what Senator Pat Stedman labeled as eulogies to the living. We will recognize those who, due to health challenges, term limits, or their own decisions, will not be members of this chamber when it convenes next January. Senator Court, thank you for your sense of humor, your tenacity, and your extensive institutional memory. My family and I will continue to pray for your healing and full recovery. God bless you, friend. Senator Todd, thank you for your kindness, your wisdom, and your willingness to work together. Senator Hill, thank you for your brilliant mind, innovative approach to just about everything, and for being bold. Senator Crowder, thank you for caring about the young, the old, veterans, rural Colorado, and, well, everyone. Thank you. Senator Tate, thank you for your effective negotiation skills, your ability to express complex issues in simple terms, and for your love of hockey. Senator Foote, thank you for being number 17 on the minority side of the aisle. Seriously, thank you for your keen legal mind, ability to explain law in simple terms within complex matters, and on a personal note, thank you for your help on President Schaefer's bill last year. Senator Marble, thank you for your principled voting record, your patriotism, and your encouragement over the years. Senator Williams, thank you for your friendship and the beautiful tribute to the Buffalo Soldiers that you presented here at the state capitol. You won our first term bet. You became a committee chair before I did, but I made chamber leadership before you. So I guess you won on both accounts. I will miss serving with you. To all those who have or will be leaving, it has been an honor to serve with you. Rewarding to get to know your stories, to learn from you, and to better understand the world from your perspective. Thank you for your service to the people of Colorado. Article 5, Section 7 of our state constitution states that the General Assembly shall meet in regular session at 10 a.m. no later than the second Wednesday of January each year. That is today. The state constitution also says that our annual general session may not exceed 120 days. That will take us through midnight Wednesday, May 6th. At that point, our lawmaking authority will end, and we part-time seasonal citizen legislators will once again be citizens, just like everybody else. Last year, amid the furious pace of our first regular session together, we were reminded of other requirements found in our state constitution. Mr. President, while it is understandable that members of the majority might feel frustration toward the tenacity with which the minority approached debate last session, it was nonetheless disappointing to hear those principled efforts described as, quote, children throwing temper tantrums, end quote. No, we are all adults here. Motions are not personal, required procedure is not tantrum, and votes are not attacks. I count you as a friend, Mr. President, and I consider all of you, even those with whom I might on occasion disagree vehemently on some given policy, to be friends too. Mr. President, we in the minority will indeed take the Constitution of the United States, the Colorado Constitution, its statutes and legislative rules at their, quote, literal meaning, end quote. We will utilize our knowledge of those documents to effectively and diligently communicate the positions that our constituents sent here to defend, and we will use the few tools afforded to us as the minority. But, Mr. President, we share your desire to work through this session more as we ended the last one than with the turmoil we experienced mid-session. Thank you, Mr. President, for your call last July. As I recall, you were in your backyard in Pueblo grilling dinner and drinking a beer while I was doing exactly the same thing in Parker. Mr. President, that open and honest conversation allowed us as leaders to see what others could not, that there simply were not enough votes to support what was being discussed under the premise of a special session. Thank you, Mr. President. Let's do more of that over the next 119 days. And now, to the elephant in the room. Article 5, Section 22 of our state constitution states that every bill should be read by title when introduced and at length on 2 different days in each house, provided, however, in any reading at length may be dispensed with upon unanimous consent of the members present. That is not a legislative rule, nor is it a mere law as enacted by the General Assembly, No, that is a requirement of our state constitution as amended by the people of Colorado. It's there because the people wanted it that way. While we have grown accustomed to having unanimous consent and dispensing with such reading at length, the state constitution to which we have all sworn an oath to defend describes a standard operating procedure in which every bill is read at length twice on separate days in each chamber. That would be second and third reading here in the Senate and again in the House, every bill. That would be quite a limitation given that our 120-day general session cannot be extended. But we didn't do that. In fact, last session, the Senate minority requested just 13 bills be read at length for a total of about 12 hours during that 120-day session. But again, Mr. President, as you and I have discussed, the objective of such readings was not simply to expend time. No, the objective usually was and is to vie for discussion. The opportunity for you, the majority leader, or another member of the majority to ask, "What do you want?" That question can be the magic words that open a not-so-secret door to success. Our responsibility in the minority is to be able to answer that question if and when asked. Yes, the state constitution allows the majority to pass any bill it wishes, and there is nothing at all that the minority can do to stop it. However, the state constitution doesn't necessarily grant that majority the authority to pass an unlimited number of bills during each limited session time frame. Thus, prioritization and communication become important factors in this unique environment in which we work. We proved how well it could work when we found a way to include $300 million of transportation funding in the current state budget. Critics scoffed that the budget amendment would never pass here in the Senate, but it did. Naysayers proclaimed that it would never hold in the House, but it did. In the end, we achieved a dollar amount and a level of bipartisan cooperation that shocked many and probably disappointed those few who actually thrive on confrontation. We achieved that, again, the two of us, Mr. President, over the interim relative to those special session discussions. And Mr. President, I am confident that we can achieve it many more times over the next 119 days. How do such negotiations happen here in Colorado, in the Colorado General Assembly? Well, it's probably due at least in part to Article 5, Section 22A of the Colorado Constitution, which prohibits caucus positions. It concerns me when I hear questions from the lobby or the press corps asking if our caucus will, quote, lock down, end quote, on a certain piece of legislation. Unlike Congress in Washington, D.C. and most other state legislatures, we aren't allowed to do that here. No. Here in the Colorado General Assembly, each member is accountable for his or her votes to his or her constituents and no one else. Still, it was interesting to read an analysis of all third reading votes cast here in the Senate during the 2019 general session. That analysis was conducted by the Colorado Sun last summer, and it showed that the most bipartisan member of the Senate minority, he who had the 16th fewest no votes on third reading, actually demonstrated greater independence in his voting record than did all 19 members of the majority caucus combined. Moving forward, it's important for all of us, the members elected, to keep Article 5, Section 22 concerning the reading of bills and 22A, which prohibits caucus positions, in mind. Why? Because the next part, Article 5, Section 22B, specifies that any bill that does not comply with the prior two sections can be nullified if it becomes law. Yes, that too is in our Constitution. Mr. President, last year I discussed some of the results of the 2018 election, which gave control of our state government to your party. In reviewing those results, I noted that while the people tended to vote with you when it came to candidates, they tended to vote with me when it came to issues. In 2019, the people of Colorado soundly rejected Proposition CC. That outcome demonstrates once again that the voters expect better return from government for their money. Colorado taxpayers have sent an ever-increasing supply of dollars every year since the 2011-2012 state budget. Taxpayers rightly expect us to be more accountable and to provide greater return for their dollars. Unlike how things work in Washington, D.C., here in Colorado, a dollar means a dollar. We must pass a budget each year, and the budget must be balanced. We cannot deficit spend, nor can we print money. Unlike Congress, we cannot continue adding spending commitments paid for with ever-increasing debt. No, here in the Colorado General Assembly, our state constitution requires us to live within the means that the taxpayers send to us each year. And as they have given us more, they rightly expect better return on the priorities they see for our state: transportation, K-12 public education, and higher education. So where do we go from here? Over the past 3 years, Senate Republicans have advocated for an annual appropriation of at least $300 million to roads and bridges. We remain consistent with that call for the next fiscal year. The governor's budget request includes $605 million for roads and bridges. At first glance, that might seem like more than twice the amount for which we have advocated, but there is a catch. We note that $555 million of that budget request is a result of Senate Bill 17-267, which created yet another enterprise, a state-owned business. Part of that 2017 bill directed the state treasurer to issue certificates of participation, or COP debt, a type of public debt that is not contemplated by our taxpayers' Bill of Rights. That is the source of those $555 million debt dollars, and we ought to not take credit for it for that funding this year. If credit is due for that funding, then let it go to those who supported Senate Bill 267 in 2017. Upon closer inspection, it is disappointing to find only $50 million coming from the general fund to address our transportation needs. That is actually a decrease of $250 million from our bipartisan efforts last session. Members, especially to those who serve on the Joint Budget Committee, let's please dedicate ourselves to maintaining at least $300 million for roads and bridges in the 2020 to 2021 fiscal year budget. It isn't a matter of taking those dollars from somewhere else. No, in this case, it's simply a matter of leaving that dollar commitment where it is currently. On the matter of roads and bridges, it is important for us here in the state legislature to keep in mind the part-time, seasonal nature of our role as state legislators. Every other Colorado elected official has the power of his or her elected office throughout the year. We, on the other hand, have lawmaking authority for only 120 days each year. Thus, we ought to think less as full-time project managers and more like part-time resource allocators. That's what we are based on our state constitution. For example, according to the Office of Legislative Counsel, the last time that the General Assembly voted to approve a specific road or bridge project occurred in the year 1899. It was a wagon road built between Leadville and Pueblo that was built by convicts. Why was that the last time? Because Colorado is a local control state, and elected officials at the county and municipal levels of government, those who hold power of their elected offices year-round, generally decide what transportation projects get done and when within their respective jurisdictions. Colleagues, we all represent and work with town or city council members, mayors, and county commissioners who approve and oversee road and bridge projects within their communities. They work with each other and with constituents to determine how each unique locality views issues such as public transportation. It's no surprise that here in Colorado, diverse communities see things in diverse ways, and each of them is right for their respective community. I am grateful to the county commissioners in Douglas and El Paso counties for their leadership in working with the Federal Department of Transportation, the Colorado Department of Transportation, between those two counties and the municipal jurisdictions along the southern I-25 corridor to widen I-25 from Castle Rock to Monument. In our unique local control state, there is hardly ever reason for we part-time state legislators to travel to Washington, D.C. in order to discuss interstate highway expansion and maintenance, but our county commissioners do that frequently. Mr. President, members, as a way for us all to say thank you to those who have made the I-25 GAP project a reality, please welcome from Douglas County, Commissioner Laura Thomas. Thank you, Commissioner Thomas, and also a shout out to former state representative and now County Commissioner Mark Waller, who has led that effort in El Paso County. Moving forward, Senate Republicans want to ask voters to consider bonding as a means to leverage hundreds of millions into billions of dollars, sooner rather than later. If the majority decides to refer a question relative to gas tax, then allow some or all of that new revenue to go toward bonding, please. The failure of Proposition CC also means that we must be thoughtful in our decision-making relative to K-12 public education. As a result of the Great Recession, the state implemented a large debt that is owed to the 178 school districts here in Colorado. We refer to that debt as the budget stabilization factor, and today it sits at nearly $572 million. Here in Colorado, the legislature doesn't set teacher salaries. Over the past summer, I attended a meeting of Republican chamber leaders from around the country. There I met the majority leader of the West Virginia House of Representatives. Since that has been one of the states often mentioned in stories about teacher protests at state capitals for higher salaries, I asked her if the West Virginia state legislature somehow establishes teacher salaries on a statewide basis. She responded with a resounding yes. That discussion demonstrates that the state constitution of West Virginia and that of Colorado are different. States are different. We know that because here in Colorado, local school boards determine teacher salaries, not the state legislature. West Virginia does it their way and we do it another, and both are correct according to those two different state constitutions. Still, Republicans share the desire to pay teachers more, especially those teachers who excel at teaching. Putting more toward buying down the budget stabilization factor would allow those local school districts to increase teacher salaries within their respective jurisdictions. We didn't tell those local school boards how to cut their budgets during the Great Recession, and we ought to avoid telling them how to increase their budgets during the booming economy. Mr. President, members, as a way for us to say thank you to teachers across Colorado, please welcome from Palmer Elementary in Monument, Colorado, Miss Lindsay Burris. Let's do all we can to support teachers and the 178 locally elected school boards to increase teacher pay in their school districts. During this session, Senate Republicans will introduce a package of education bills that are designed to make real positive changes to our public K-12 education system. We will address school choice and innovation, taxpayer accountability and transparency, ways to better support great teachers, and ways to address the safety of students, teachers, and staff within our public schools. We are focusing on ways to improve delivery without necessarily asking for more money from taxpayers. We will respond to the taxpayers of Colorado by delivering better return for the increasing number of dollars they send to us. As to the third leg of the failed Proposition CC, that being higher education, it is important to recognize that we recognize our limitations as a state legislature. Do you know that the amount of funding that we are able to send to the University of Colorado is approximately 5% of their total funding each year? Yes, 5%. As a minority stakeholder, we should avoid acting as though we have majority control or influence over their annual budget. Rather, we should seek ways to help our institutions of higher education to think outside the box, to be more entrepreneurial, and to achieve their goals in new and innovative ways. To that end, there are two leaders of Colorado higher education here with us today who deserve our thanks and recognition. First, as president of Arapahoe Community College, Diana Doyle has worked to expand access to concurrent enrollment for high school students throughout the Front Range. Whether through a credential or an associate's degree, we know that greater success can be realized with each level of success achieved in higher education. Over the summer, I was proud to attend the grand opening of an ACC satellite campus in Castle Rock, which improves access for more people to achieve greater outcomes. Mr. President, members, please welcome to the Senate Chamber the President of Arapahoe Community College, Ms. Diana Doyle. Mr. President, we also have the president of a Colorado-based four-year institution of higher education that hasn't increased tuition since 2011, does not charge student fees, has healthy financial reserves if they are ever needed. The institution offers a published standard tuition rate that is the 5th lowest in the nation, yet this institution does not receive COF dollars from the state. This institution serves as an example here for us here in the Colorado General Assembly because it actually delivers high quality at low cost. U.S. News and World Report ranks CSU Global as the 8th best online bachelor's degree program in the nation and number 6 for BA degrees for veterans. I was also honored to attend a grand opening of a new CSU Global facility in Aurora, which also improves access for more people to achieve great outcomes. Mr. President, members, please welcome to the Senate Chamber the President of CSU Global, Ms. Becky Tadeka-Tinker. Mr. President, members working together, President Doyle and President Tadeka-Tinker have embraced articulation agreements as envisioned on a bipartisan basis here at the Capitol. In my opinion, they represent the best of the present and the very bright future for higher education here in Colorado. Together, Republicans and Democrats have addressed transition points between preschool all the way through bachelor's or even more advanced degrees earned in Colorado. Ladies, thank you for your innovative and effective leadership. Improving access for people to achieve greater outcomes. It's starting to sound like a theme. Given our finite ability to fund, our focus should be less on toward creating new programs and pleading for more money, and more toward raising awareness about existing programs that actually work to improve access for people to achieve great outcomes. For example, for some students, some families, concurrent enrollment can cut the cost of a 4-year college degree in half. While it's not the right answer for every student, it's perfect for some, and it already exists. Mr. President, members, we have with us today a high school student who completed all of the requirements of an associate's degree in science by the end of her junior year in high school. Her school and school district have paid for most of those college credits. Now, as a high school senior, she is working toward a certification as a veterinarian's assistant. Grace, would you please stand? Members, hold your applause for just a moment. Mr. President, members, Grace Sandez attends Colorado Early Colleges in Fort Collins. Former State Senator Keith King, great to have you with us, sir, founded that school and others like it in Colorado Springs, Parker, and Aurora. Today, they educate 3,500 students. Looking ahead, Grace hopes to attend a veterinarian college and fulfill one of her lifetime goals, to be a veterinarian. And she has the opportunity to accomplish that goal as a first-year junior in college because our predecessors here, Republicans and Democrats, in the legislature, and leaders in her school district, at her school, her teachers and parents improved access for people to achieve greater outcomes. Mr. President, members, please welcome to the Senate chamber future veterinarian Miss Grace Sandez. Just this week, I spoke to a parent of a high school senior who was excited about the concurrent enrollment, how concurrent enrollment was providing opportunity for her son. Her only frustration was that she and her son didn't know about concurrent enrollment until his senior year in high school. Members, we owe it to the parents of students here in Colorado to inform them about concurrent enrollment, and to do that earlier in the student's academic career, middle school, which for students like Grace and her family can literally cut the cost of a four-year degree in half. But concurrent enrollment isn't the right answer for all students, and our prior work on articulation agreements and simplifying transition points, P through 24, embraces that fact. For example, my son, Carson. He graduated from high school and is currently working to complete his associate's degree with the intention of transferring to CSU Global as a third-year junior. For Carson, that path made sense. He is working and earning income while completing his first 2 years of college at ACC, while his third and fourth years of college will likely be completed online, all while living at home, keeping his expenses low and debt to a minimum. Mr. President, members, please welcome my son, Carson Holbert, to the Senate chamber. He didn't really want me to introduce him today. I said he had to be. I'm almost done, members. Thank you so much for your patience. Mr. President, not every student in Colorado receives the support and encouragement they deserve. No, for some, each day is a challenge for acceptance. During the 2015 general session, I was proud to serve as a prime sponsor of Jack's Law, named for Jack Split. That law required each locally elected school board to adopt a policy that would allow a parent or designated adult caregiver to dispense cannabis-based medicine to a designated patient student while on school property during school hours. I was proud to see the Douglas County Board of Education lead the way with such a policy following the 2015 general session. No, that law does not allow kids to possess cannabis on campus, only a parent or adult caregiver. No, the law doesn't allow for anything to be smoked. Most of the time, it's about an eyedropper of oil, open, swallow, and get back to class. But in some cases, there might need to be a more robust solution available for someone who could potentially suffer a grand mal seizure. One constituent who I represent is deathly allergic to the pharmaceuticals used in such an EpiPen. If he were to experience a grand mal seizure, then some good Samaritan who intended the best could actually kill my friend by injecting what for others is the only hope. That constituent needs a solution that does not involve pharmaceuticals and instead must rely on a THC-based cannabis alternative. But the school board in our school district has refused to allow that cannabis-based alternative to be stored on school grounds. If that student were to suffer a grand mal seizure, then there would not be time to retrieve the proper medication from his home, and the young man could die. Why are students in this state still discriminated against due to the use of cannabis-based medicine? Why can't being seizure-free for 4 years be evidence enough that good things can come from that plant? How can we stand by as one or more school boards in this state presumes to decide which student lives and which might die? If Representative Singer and Van Winkle can find the right wording, the right solution, that I would again ask for your help in sending yet another clear message to those 178 locally elected school boards. Jack's Law passed this chamber unanimously, and I would hope that our next step might be unanimous as well. One of Jack Splitt's fellow student advocates for cannabis-based medicine is here with us today. Ben, would you please stand? Whew. Those who served on the Senate Education Committee in 2015 might remember that little boy from 5 years ago who wrote his own testimony and read it aloud before the committee. As you can see, little Ben isn't so little anymore. When one person testified in opposition to Jack's Law, I asked, "Where's the evidence?" I turned and pointed to Ben Wan and said, "It's right there." And he stands here again today. Ben is an epileptic who has now lived 4 years seizure-free due to cannabis-based medicine. Ben needs cannabis-based nasal spray to be stored at his school in the event that the worst happens. But unfortunately, the Douglas County Board of Education won't allow it to be stored on campus. Members, would you please welcome Ben and his parents, Amber and Brad Wan, to the Senate chamber. Members, I may ask you to stand with Ben and me later this session if the House is able to find the right solution. But Mr. President, I have great confidence that working together, we can address these and many other issues. I am proud to stand with you and our 33 co-equal colleagues here in the Colorado Senate. We can do this, Mr. President. And now, let's get to work. Thank you, Mr. President.
The Senate will come back to order. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the remarks of the President and I guess also the Minority Leader be spread upon the pages of the Journal.
Is there any objection? Seeing none, the motion is adopted. Introduction of bills. Mr. Carpenter.
Senate Bill 1 by Senator Fields, Representative Soroto and Beckman, concerning expanding behavioral health training for kindergarten through 12th grade educators.
Education.
Senate Bill 2 by Senator Donovan, concerning the creation of the Rural Economic Development Initiative Grant Program.
Agriculture and Natural Resources.
Senate Bill 3 by Senators Garcia and Heisey and Representative Escar, concerning improvements to state parks in connection with making an appropriation.
Agriculture and Natural Resources.
Senate Bill 4 by Senator Finberg and Representative Hayward McCluskey, concerning creating a student loan repayment assistance program for post-secondary education.
Finance.
Senate Bill 5 by Senators Winter and Priola and Representative McCluskey, concerning restructuring of the payment of cost-sharing amounts owed by certain covered persons.
Health and Human Services.
Senate Bill 6 by Senators Zenzinger and Story and Representative Kip and Basley, concerning changes to the continuing administration of the Colorado Opportunity Scholarship Initiative in connection with making an appropriation.
Education.
Senate Bill 7 by Senators Pedersen and Winter and Representatives Monteo and Wilson, concerning treatment for substance use disorders.
Health and Human Services.
Senate Bill 8 by Senator Winter and Representatives Jackson and Hooten, concerning the enhancement of penalties for criminal violations of water quality laws.
Agriculture and Natural Resources.
Senate Bill 9 by Senators Zenzinger and Rankin, Representative McLaughlin, concerning expansion of the Adult Education and Literacy Grant Program.
Education.
Senate Bill 10 by Senators Donovan and Representative Froelich and Valdez A, concerning repeal of the prohibition of local government regulation of plastics.
Local Government.
Senate Bill 11 by Senators Heisey and Winter and Representatives Catlin and Valdez D, concerning permanent authorization for third-party providers to perform vehicle identification number verification inspections for commercial vehicles.
Transportation and Energy.
Senate Bill 12 by Senators Winter and Tate and Representative Hanson, concerning the transmission of renewable energy through transmission lines across property subject to a conservation easement.
Transportation and Energy.
Senate Bill 13 by Senator Rodriguez, Concerning measures to facilitate the use of innovative energy technologies by investor-owned public utilities in connection with authorizing Public Utilities Commission to review and approve investor-owned utilities applications for low-emission dispatchable innovative energy technologies based on meeting specified criteria.
State Veterans and Military Affairs.
Senate Bill 14 by Senators Fields and Representative Michael J. concerning excused absences in public schools resulting from behavioral health concerns.
Education.
Senate Bill 15 by Senator Hill and Representative Humphrey concerning providing access to public schools options for certain high-need students by authorizing a school district in which the student is enrolled to provide transportation for the student.
State Veterans and Military Affairs.
Senate Bill 16 by Senator Rankin concerning amending the existing parent notification law to require notification of charges brought against public school employees relating to the provision of illegal substances to students.
Judiciary.
Senate Bill 17 by Senator Winter and Representative Gray concerning requirement that the high-performance transportation enterprise include information about the public-private partnerships in its annual report to the legislative committees of the House of Representatives and the Senate that have jurisdiction over transportation.
Transportation Energy.
Senate Bill 18 by Senator Finberg and Corman, Representative McCluskey and Snyder concerning programs to reduce wildfire risk through outreach to people experiencing homelessness in connection with making appropriation.
Local Government Finance.
Senate Bill 19 by Senators Gordon Tate and Representative Benavides and Bachfeld concerning the creation of the Legislative Oversight Committee concerning tax policy.
Finance.
Senate Bill 20 by Senator Sonberg and Representative Pelton and Holtorf concerning reduction of the state income tax rate.
State Veterans and Military Affairs.
Senate Bill 21 by Senators Gordon Tate and Representative Snyder and Benavides concerning certain requirements that must be included in the tax expenditure bill.
Finance.
Senate Bill 22 by Senator Danielson concerning modifications to the Colorado Health Service Corps program administered by the Department of Public Health and Environment to expand the availability of geriatric care providers in the shortest areas in the state.
Health and Human Services.
Senate Bill 23 by Senators Gardner Gonzalez and Representative Michael J. Van Winkle concerning creating a multi-agency working group to address school safety.
Education.
Senate Bill 24 by Senators Corman, Donovan, Representative Arndt, and Catlin concerning the inclusion of public input in the development of a state water resources demand management program.
Agricultural and Natural Resources.
Senate Bill 25 by Senator Garcia and Representative Montoya and Escar concerning authorization of the Board of Directors of the Conservancy District to participate in certain projects within the district in connection with authorizing such a board to consider such participation at current expense of the district.
Agricultural and Natural Resources.
Senate Bill 26 by Senators Fields and Cook and Representative Singer concerning eligibility for workers' compensation benefits for workers who are exposed to psychological traumatic events in connection with establishing that a worker's visual or audible exposure to the serious bodily injury or death or the immediate aftermath of serious bodily injury or death of one or more people as a result of a violent event, the intentional act of another person, or an accident is a psychological traumatic event for the purpose of determining the worker's eligibility for work compensation benefit.
Business, Labor, and Technology.
Senate Bill 27 by Senator Crowder concerning school safety plans for all schools in each school district.
State Veterans and Military Affairs.
Senate Bill 28 by Senators Patterson, Priolo, and Representative Monteo and Harrod concerning measures to assist an individual's recovery from a substance use disorder.
Health and Human Services.
Senate Bill 29 by Senators Fields and Moreno and Representative Coleman and Durant concerning an annual cost of living adjustment to the amount of basic cash assistance Colorado Works Program recipient receives.
Finance.
Senate Bill 30 by Senators Garcia and Rodriguez concerning increased consumer protection for consumers of investor-owned utilities.
Transportation and Energy.
Senate Bill 31 by Senators Story and Zensing and Representative Kip concerning an improved student success innovation pilot program through the collaboration of multiple institutions of higher education to increase the number of students who successfully complete post-secondary education.
Education.
Senate Bill 32 by Senator Holman and Representative McKean and Escar concerning the age of employees authorized to sell alcohol beverages as establishments licensed to sell alcohol beverages at retail.
Business, Labor, and Technology.
Senate Bill 33 by Senator Tate and Representative Valentine concerning access to the Medicaid buying program for certain working adults with disabilities who have become ineligible for the program due to age.
Health and Human Services.
Senate Bill 34 by Senators Moreno and Zingers, Representative McKean and Arndt concerning a change to the date by which statutory revision committee is required to report annually to the General Assembly.
State Veterans and Military Affairs.
Senate Bill 35 by Senator Scott concerning the kiosk program that authorizes private providers to offer services on behalf of the Department of Revenue.
State Veterans and Military Affairs.
Senate Bill 36 by Senators Zenzinger and Cook and Representatives Hanson and Liston concerning the submission to the Federal Environmental Protection Agency the proposed revision of the state implementation plan that would enable a vehicle that fails the onboard diagnostics test solely because a check engine light is illuminated on the vehicle's dashboard to undergo a tailpipe emissions test.
Transportation and Energy.
Senate Bill 37 by Senators Rodriguez and Fields and Representative Singer concerning the development of a strategic plan to implement a trusted interoperability platform.
Judiciary.
Senate Bill 38 by Senator Finberg and Representative Hawkins was concerning the establishment of a statewide standard for the sale of biodiesel blended diesel fuel in Colorado.
Transportation and Energy.
Senate Bill 39 by Senator Fields and Story and Representative Valdez A. and Roberts concerning updated accessibility signage in a state-owned facility.
State Veterans and Military Affairs.
Senate Bill 40 by Senators Jernal and Todd and Representative Buckner, Michelson, and Janae concerning the regulation of genetic counselors.
Health and Human Services.
Senate Bill 41 by Senator Cook and Representative Beckman concerning parks passes for active members of the National Guard.
State Veterans and Military Affairs.
Senate Bill 42 by Senators Rodriguez and Fields, Representative Singer, concerning the reauthorization of the Legislative Oversight Committee concerning the treatment of persons with behavioral health disorders in the criminal and juvenile justice systems.
Judiciary.
Senate Bill 43 by Senator Tate and Representative Valdez D concerning correction of the rate of reimbursement that an out-of-network healthcare provider is entitled to receive from a healthcare insurance carrier for service provided to a covered person at an in-network facility when the healthcare provider submits a claim to the carrier with a specified time period to confirm with existing law.
Health and Human Services.
Senate Bill 44 by Senator Lundin, Representative Carver concerning allocation, sales, and use tax revenue attributable to sales or use of the vehicle and related items to transportation funding in connection with providing additional funding for state, county, and municipal road and bridge projects.
State Veterans and Military Affairs.
Senate Bill 45 by Senator Tate and Representative Valdez concerning the mandatory contents of each license issued to a hospital or Department of Public Health and Environment.
Health and Human Services.
Senate Bill 46 by Senator Tate and Representative Warren concerning clarification that electrical inspection fees may be doubled if the application for an electrical permit is not filed in advance of the commencement of an electrical installation.
Business, Labor, and Technology.
Senate Bill 47 by Senators Williams and Tate and Representative Crathorpe and Van Winkle concerning exemption from the definition of real estate appraisal and analysis prepared by agents from financial institutions for the institution's internal use only.
Business, Labor, and Technology.
Senate Bill 48 by Senators Donovan Corman and Representative Roberts and Catlin concerning a study to consider the strengthening of the prohibition on speculative appropriations of water.
Which title is that, Mr. Carpenter? Agriculture and Natural Resources.
Senate Bill 49 by Senator Cardin, Representative Carver and Beckman concerning the preservation of the senior property tax exemption of a senior who changes primary residences due to medical necessity.
State Veterans and Military Affairs. State Veterans, Military Affairs, and Finance.
Senate Bill 50 by Senator Woodward concerning a state income tax credit related to eligible educators' personal expenses.
Finance.
Senate Bill 51 by Senator Priol and Representative Valdez A concerning license plates in connection with specifying that in order to minimize potential loss registration revenue, the license plates of a motor vehicle that is classified as Class C personal property expire under the sale or transportation of the motor vehicle, and that in order to improve eligibility and enforcement, a revised color scheme is required for certain license plates manufactured on or after a specified date.
Transportation and Energy.
Senate Bill 52 by Senator Quorum concerning the creation of the Smart School Bus Safety Pilot Program.
Education and Finance.
Senate Bill 53 by Senator Bridges concerning the ability of a retail liquor store license to obtain additional retail liquor store licenses.
Business, Labor, and Technology, and Finance.
Senate Bill 54 by Senator Quorum and Representative McLaughlin concerning the creation of the Rural Development Grant Program.
Agriculture and Natural Resources.
Senate Bill 55 by Senators Brill and Story and Representative Cutter and Arnn concerning the expansion of the market mechanisms for the further development of recycling.
Business, Labor, and Technology.
Senate Bill 56 by Senator Senator Crowder and Representative Will concerning surplus military vehicles in connection therewith, exempting a surplus military vehicle from the statutory definition of an off-highway vehicle if the vehicle is owned or leased by a municipality, county, or fire protection districts for the purpose of assisting firefighting efforts.
State Veterans and Military Affairs.
Senate Bill 57 by Senator Lee and Representative Snyder and Cutter concerning the inclusion of firefighters employed by the Department of Public Safety in the Division of Fire Prevention and Control and certain employee benefits.
Finance.
Senate Bill 58 by Senator Marble and Representative Singh concerning the facilitation of asphalt shingle recycling.
Local Government.
Senate Bill 59 by Senator Heisen and Representative Larson concerning sexual assault on a student by an educator.
Judiciary Appropriations.
Senate Bill 60 by Senator Gonzalez and Rodriguez, Representative Gonzalez Gutierrez concerning a study to examine operational processes within the criminal justice system.
Judiciary.
Senate Bill 61 by Senator Foote concerning a requirement to yield to a bicycle in a bicycle lane.
Judiciary.
Senate Bill 62 by Senator Gardner and Lee and Representative Harrington Soper concerning the enactment of the Colorado Revised Statute 2019 as well as statutory law of the state of Colorado.
Judiciary.
Senate Bill 63 by Senator Lee and Representative Wiseman and King concerning the recodification of statutory provisions governing the Department of Law.
Judiciary.
Senate Bill 64 by Senator Foote and Representative Soper and Tipper concerning the repeal of prohibition on the state attorney general bringing an action under state antitrust law when certain corporate actions have been reviewed by a federal entity.
Judiciary.
Senate Bill 65 by Senator Corden and Representative Roberts concerning limitation on the use of mobile electronic devices while driving.
Transportation and Energy.
Senate Bill 66 by Senator Priol and Representative Monteo concerning distribution of grant money to local education providers to fund incentives for highly effective teachers identified by objective measures of state student academic growth to teach in low-performing schools in connection with creating the greatest resources for education, our Teachers Act, and making an appropriation.
State Veterans and Military Affairs. Announcements. Assistant Majority Leader Fields.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do have two announcements. First, I would like to let everyone know that if you're on the Capital Development Committee, we do meet tomorrow at 7:30. Also, in the spirit of announcing all of the fine work and the people that are here in the chamber, there's some folks that I would like to recognize as well. My colleague from Aurora, please come down to join me as we acknowledge, and we're not going to do titles. These are just the faces of Aurora. And because they've been such a strong leader in our community, I just wanted to have them stand. We have someone here from the community of faith. Will my pastor please stand? And then we also have someone from the mental health organization. Will you please stand? I also have someone here from the DA's office, the 18th Judicial District. Will you please stand? I also have the chief, the sheriff. The chief was here, our brand new chief who was appointed on January 1, our first woman chief of police, Wilson. She's not here, but I want to acknowledge all of her work that she does to keep our community safe. And our sheriff is here, and I have an educator here and a good friend, and we have some crime victims that are here. Will you please stand? Thank you for your support over the years. Thank you.
Welcome to the Senate.
So, in addition, Mr. President.
Senator Todd.
Thank you, Mr. President. So in addition to all those faces, another face that you have seen around this Capitol for the last 16 years is my husband, my husband of a woman legislator, who has been a faithful supporter, who without him, I could not do this job. So please join me in welcoming Terry Todd.
Senator Todd, thank you for that recognition. To all the members and your family and friends who are joining us, thank you for joining us today. Senator Woodward.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have an announcement. I'd ask that that my fellow members join me tonight at the best reception for the year, the Colorado Restaurant Association, at 6 o'clock tonight over at History, Colorado. Hope to see you there.
Further announcements? Seeing none, Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, it's very good to see all of you this morning. There's just 119 days left. I just have a couple of housekeeping announcements. On Friday, January 10th, so just in a couple of days, there will be training sessions on workplace harassment. It's available for all members in room 103 of the State Services Building. There will be one at 8 a.m., another session upon adjournment of both chambers because it will be with the House. And then there will also be a third session next Friday, January 17th at 8 a.m. So there are 3 sessions that you can choose from. You can go to all 3, I think, but you don't have to. But choose one of those and please attend. Tomorrow, Thursday, is the Governor's State of the State address. I think everybody knows the routine by now, but we will convene in the Senate and then recess to join the House. For the address, there will be a seat for you on the House floor next to your corresponding representative. All other guests will need to view from the gallery. And then right now it is scheduled for January 14th, but because of some of the shifting in seats and potential absences, we will reconfirm what the date is going to be. But it's super exciting. Many of you have seen and appreciated the cool photograph from 1905 of the Senate chamber. I think there was a recreation of that, but it is a much better looking Senate these days. So we want to recreate it again. And we will be doing a full recreation of that 1905 chamber photo, especially now that the chamber is fully restored. We will be hanging the original flag display. We'll be including what I have here in my notes are little trinkets, specifically the wastebaskets and the spittoons that you see in the original photo. So it's going to be really fun. I'm excited for this day. Right now, again, it is for January 14th, but I will confirm exactly if that is going to be the date or if we're going to push it back at all for the filling of a vacancy seat that we have. So it'll be a lot of fun. We'll talk about it again as that date approaches. Also, some notes from OLS. Legislative Legal Services has asked me to remind you about the delivery of bills for Friday's bill introduction deadline. Your finalized bills will be delivered to the front desk for introduction unless you have asked Legal Services to deliver the bill to you instead. But the default will be to deliver the bill to the front desk. If you wish to have a bill delivered directly to you instead of the front desk, you must have that bill completely finalized with your drafter by 5 p.m. on Thursday, January 9th, so 5 p.m. tomorrow. If your bill is delivered to you, don't forget to turn it into the front desk no later than 4:30 Friday afternoon for the introduction. Secondly, once a bill is delivered to the front desk or you for introduction, it should not be returned back to Legal Services for any changes that you want to make. Those should be made by amendment at that point once the bill is introduced. Lastly, please don't return bills that are delivered for introduction to Legal Services to add co-sponsors. Co-sponsors can be added by the Senate front desk or the enrolling room staff before your bill is actually sent to the printer. If you have questions about adding co-sponsors, our amazing staff here at the desk are happy to remind you of the process probably over and over and over again as we get the hang of all of this once again. Finally, just a quick reminder, we will be starting at 10 a.m. For the rest of the week, so tomorrow as well as Friday, which is custom for the first week of session. Mr. President, I think that's about it. If anybody needs lessons on changing diapers, if anyone's rusty, I'm happy to provide those. What's that? Yeah. Or if you have a diaper that you would like me to help with, I'm happy to provide some tips. Mr. President, I think that's all I've got. I move that the Senate again adjourn until 10 a.m. Thursday, January 9th, 2020.
You have heard the motion. Is there any objection? Seeing none, the Senate will stand in adjournment until 10:00 hours on Thursday, January 9th, 2020.
Thank you.